By its definition, a traumatic event is not ordinary. It's overwhelming. It's like your house burning down or like your parents dying. It's something no 10-year-old should ever have to cope with.
5 years of dirty secrets, followed by complete and utter silence. You begin to think that you have imagined it.
I was just a boy. I was supposed to be a man about it all. I couldn't squeal on anybody, couldn't cry about it. It was like some kind of ridiculous code. I couldn't trust anybody. I felt so worthless. I didn't feel like I'd tell anybody about it. I thought he would have killed me.
He told me that I was special, that it was a secret. He said that if I told anybody, my mom or anybody, that they wouldn't believe me. And they would know I was bad. He said they would send me away from my family for lying and for being bad. I was scared all the time.
Sexual abuse occurs when one person gratifies their sexual needs by using a more vulnerable person. Such exploitation can include genital exposure, extensive nudity, touching, fondling, kissing, rubbing, intercourse, or rape.
It's beyond anything that you could imagine. It colors how you look at the world and the people around you. It makes your reality one of fear and distrust. It turns the world upside down. People who should protect you are the source of your pain. The first person I ever told was my doctor. She was the first person who ever asked me. It was hard to say it then. It's still hard to say it now, to even form the words that I am a survivor of sexual abuse. I got anxious. I got depressed. I had pain. It was chronic. It just wouldn't go away. I don't think any of those things were crazy or that they were psychopathological, as one of the doctors referred to it. And it still colors the way I look at the world. It was my reality that was crazy, not me.
So I see from your chart that you've been having a lot of stomach pains. And I understand that you've also seen quite a lot of doctors about this. Tell me, what specifically brings you in here to see me today?
The pain, it's just getting worse, unbearable. I can't sleep. The pain makes it hard to get to sleep, and I wake up on and off throughout the night and really early in the morning.
I see you've been prescribed some medications for depression too. Can you tell me, did they help? Did they do any good with, for example, the stomach pains or the sleep?
The pills helped a little with the sleeping, but even when I do sleep, I have bad nightmares, and I feel tired when I wake up. The pain is still strong, and no one's told me what's causing it.
Can you tell me a little bit about these nightmares?
Maybe. I've trouble remembering them when I wake up, but I'm usually sweating and crying when I wake up, and my pain is really bad then.
That must be hard on you.
What do they have to do with anything?
How's your husband coping with all this? How's he responding to it? Is he being helpful?
We aren't together anymore. We separated about 6 months ago.
I'm sorry to hear that. I wonder if your pelvic pain was causing any problems in your marriage. Do you think it was?
What has that got to do with anything? Well, I don't know. I've had the pain for a long time, and it didn't seem important, if you know what I mean. The other doctor said that as long as I didn't feel pain when, that there was no problem. But we didn't have a great physical relationship. I don't really like sex much, If it didn't hurt or anything while we were doing it, but I never enjoyed it, That bothered my husband a lot, that I didn't enjoy it.
Could you feel at all comfortable telling me why you don't enjoy intercourse? Have you talked with anybody about this? Do you think it might perhaps have some relationship to your pelvic pain or to your nightmares?
I don't know. I've never really liked it, and no, I haven't talked to anybody about it. The other doctors never asked me about this.
Why was none of this ground covered before? I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Please don't be uncomfortable. As you see, I'm not taking any notes. This is an important question. It might really help me a lot to understand what it is that's causing this pelvic pain of yours. Did anybody ever hurt you sexually? When you were small, perhaps? When you were a teenager? Can you remember anything like that?
My dad, when I was, he knows. Oh God, he knows. My dad, when I was 6, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
They'll all know what I did with Daddy.
It wasn't your fault. We can help you through this. You're not alone. Not anymore.
Crucial times for me were when I began to recognize behaviors of my own that were bordering on abusive. As I got older, I did a lot of things to push people away. Drank a lot, wouldn't talk to anybody, a lot of self-destructive stuff. Testing people, pushing them away till they had to let me down. It was a friend who finally forced me to get some counseling. Her and the news. Hearing so much about sexual abuse in the media made a huge difference for me. It made me feel like I was part of a group. It ended the silence, broke the ice. It made it easier to talk about, made it easier to get some help. It's hard, you have to unlearn all kinds of beliefs and behaviors that you develop to protect yourself. It's painful, but at least I'm not doing it alone.
Researchers have identified 4 main trauma-inducing factors in child sexual abuse. 1. Traumatic sexualization. 2. Betrayal. 3. Powerlessness. And 4. Stigma. These four factors operate together to create a specific childhood trauma that is different from trauma such as divorce of a child's parent or even physical abuse. These factors alter the child's cognitive and emotional development. They create trauma by causing distortions of the child's sense of self and sense of others, as well as his or her emotional development, perspective on the world, and sense of safety in it. Traumatic sexualization refers to the fact that in sexual abuse, the child is sexualized at an age when he or she is physically and emotionally immature and in a way that is relationally dysfunctional. The child's sexuality is used to satisfy the needs of the abuser. Betrayal refers to the child being deliberately used and harmed by someone on whom he or she is dependent and from whom nurture and protection should be expected. Betrayal is usually most traumatic when the abuser is a parent. Powerlessness refers to the child's helplessness and inability to do anything to prevent or stop the abuse. Stigmatization refers to the negative connotations that are communicated to the child by the abuse, which then become incorporated into the developing child's sense of self. Badness, shame, guilt, self-blame, and self-hatred.
Yes, I was abused when I was a small girl. So why should it still bother me? You wonder why you have no memory of your childhood. Why you have medical problems that no one can find a reason for. Why you are an expert at being worthless. Why you abuse food, diet pills, alcohol, antidepressants. You must remember that women in my generation were trained not to speak of such things. The message was, you're a woman, sex is part of it, abuse is part of it, so get on with it. The idea, the attitude that I should have gotten over it or fixed it by the time I was an adult was probably the biggest obstacle to my healing. Finding out that I wasn't the only one was really important in my healing process. I'm still learning to be kinder to myself, to ask for support and help when I need it.
We survive.
We endure. We persist.
We persist. We prevail.
We prevail. We go on.
We go on. We are survivors of sexual abuse.
Some of us were hurt by strangers. Some of us were damaged by those we trusted most.
Our pain is profound and complex, immune to suture or scalpel, resistant to miracle cure.
Our wounds are deep and real, some buried in memory, some hidden in silence, undetectable by standard procedure, invisible to X-ray and the hurried glance.
How will you know us? How will you see us?
How many of us have you already known but cannot see?
If you know 15 men, chances are that 2 of us have survived sexual abuse.
If you know a dozen women, chances are that 3 of us are survivors of sexual abuse.
We come in all shapes and sizes.
We come from all walks of life.
We could be old or young.
We could be girls or we could be boys.
We could be gay or straight, well-educated or illiterate.
We could be any color, believe in any God, come from any country, from any kind of family.
We could be a friend of yours from high school or a total stranger.
We are survivors of sexual abuse.
We are survivors of sexual abuse.
We are survivors of sexual
We are
abuse.
survivors of sexual
We are
abuse.
survivors of sexual abuse.
We could be anybody. We could be you.
We're individuals with particular histories, diverse skills, and unique responses to our abuse and our abusers. We're all different.
The only thing we have in common is that we have to get better. Sometimes we try to do it alone. Sometimes we need somebody to help us. Maybe you could help us.
Well, for me, it was the birth of my daughter that started the whole process of my healing. The pregnancy threw me into this horrible depression, and I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I was just a total mess. My doctor was good. He was determined to figure out what was really wrong and recognize the symptoms. I think he really helped me a lot and got me into counseling.
It was AA that started it for me. My wife threatened to leave me if I didn't go. And once I got off the booze, all the pain and memories began to surface. It was awful. But my wife, she stuck it out with me. And we're working on it, together.
My doctors were no help at all. They just treated me for mild depression and sent me home. It was my sister who brought it all out into the open and forced me to deal with it. Dad had abused her after I left home. It was in trying to respond to her anger that I suddenly found my own.
I was watching this movie. It was about date rape, and I just burst out crying. Right there in the theater with my friends. And when we went back to the apartment for coffee after, they just asked me point blank, Another one of them said that the same thing had happened to her when she was in high school.
Nobody spoke about it ever. But the 6 of us, we knew. About 10 years later, after Jerry killed himself, there were only 5 of us left. 3 on real bad drugs, 1 in jail for assault, and me. I got some help. I mean, what choice did I have? It was dealing with that or something much worse.
Finally, when I did tell my mom, she believed me. We went to see a doctor, and she believed me too. The man was wrong, They didn't send me away. They sent him away.